Court-martial, military prison, federal conviction. That's what Jeffrey Dahmer's sergeants demanded. Instead, just 17 days later, he walked out with the military's highest honor. This is part 2 of our investigation into the honorable discharge that changed everything. And what I found in these documents will make you question everything you thought you knew. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, pause this video right now and go watch it. Link in the description. In that episode, we uncovered the 5 red flags that showed Dahmer spiraling out of control in the Army. Today we're going deeper, way deeper. Because I've transcribed his actual military records from December 1980 to March 1981. And folks, these aren't just disciplinary reports. These are sergeants literally putting in writing that they wanted this man court-martialed and sent to military prison. So the question isn't what Dahmer did. We know what he did. The question is, why did the US Army let him walk free? Before we get into what happened, you need to understand what we're talking about here. Court-martial isn't a slap on the wrist. This isn't do some push-ups and think about what you did. In military terms, judicial punishment is extraordinarily serious. We're talking about a federal criminal conviction, potential confinement in a military prison, forfeiture of all pay, a bad conduct or dishonorable discharge that follows you for life. There's no right to refuse once charges are formally referred. This is the military justice system's equivalent of a felony conviction in civilian court. When multiple non-commissioned officers, your direct superiors, explicitly call for court-martial proceedings, it means they believe the offense warrants federal prosecution. That's what Dahmer was facing. That's what his superiors demanded. Now let me show you what the documents actually say. December 22nd, 1980, 6:15 a.m. Private First Class Dahmer arrives for duty heavily intoxicated. For the second time, his section sergeant Pete Altman documents it immediately. December 23rd, the very next day. Dahmer shows up drunk, again. When ordered to clean the hallway, he refuses. He's given the order a second time. He refuses again. This isn't just poor performance. This is direct insubordination, a court-martial offense under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. March 7th, 1981. Dahmer reports to formation in improper uniform, gets sent back to his room to fix it, never returns. When they finally find him and order him to report to the aid station, the report states, and I quote, "It was quite obvious that the SM was intoxicated." March 9th. Given a direct order to polish his boots, refuses. This wasn't a soldier having a bad week. This was someone in absolute free fall, and everyone around him could see it. Now, I'm going to read you 5 statements that should have ended with Dahmer in military prison. These are verbatim from his service records. Statement 1. Sergeant Pete Altman, December 22nd, 1980. On or around the 22nd of December 1980, at 0615 hours, when PFC Dahmer arrived to duty, he was heavily intoxicated. He was told by Sergeant Goss that he had been drinking beer before coming to duty. This makes the second time that PFC Dahmer has come to duty highly intoxicated. I recommend max judicial punishment be taken. Let me repeat that. Max judicial punishment. Altman continues. PFC Dahmer has been at CDAAC. That's the Community Drug and Alcohol Assistance Center. Then was returned to full duty. He will be referred again. Translation? Rehabilitation wasn't working. Altman was recommending court-martial. Statement 2. The very next day. December 23rd, Sergeant Altman again. PFC Dahmer was told to do the hallway and refused because he said it was not his turn to do the detail. PFC Dahmer appears to be intoxicated. Then this. PFC Dahmer was given an order to do hallway again and refused. Refused a direct order, twice, while intoxicated. That's not just a disciplinary issue, that's a criminal offense in the military. Statement 3. Specialist David Goss. Now listen to what Dahmer's platoon leader says. I honestly feel PFC Dahmer does have a serious problem, and although he fails to admit this problem and attempts to find a solution, there is not much I can do. But here's the critical part. PFC Dahmer's actions recently have not only affected him while on duty, it has not only hampered medical care to the battalion, but has also affected the health standards in his room at the barracks. His behavior wasn't just hurting himself. It was compromising medical care for an entire battalion. Statement 4. Staff Sergeant Don Gerlinghouse, March 7th. After talking to the SM, it was quite obvious that the SM was intoxicated. Gerlinghouse notes that Dahmer's been counseled multiple times, been through CDAAC, but the appointments keep getting canceled because of the field commitments. Then he writes, I personally feel that this SM has been counseled and given sufficient chances to right his problem with alcohol, and it is apparent by his actions and appearance that SM does not wish to take the initiative to correct the problem. His recommendation? Reduce him in rank through Article 15 proceedings. Statement 5. The final demand. March 9th, 1981. Sergeant Altman again. And this one is just 4 sentences that change everything. PFC Dahmer was given a direct order this morning to polish his boots, and still has not done it. PFC Dahmer will not take orders. When orders are taken, job is only half done. Then this final line. I, Sergeant Altman, want judicial punishment taken against PFC Dahmer. There it is. Plain language. No bureaucratic doublespeak. I want judicial punishment. And Dahmer himself knew what he was facing. In earlier records, there's a statement where he admitted he didn't want to be punished or go to jail. This wasn't paranoia. This was a clear-eyed assessment of reality. The documentation was meticulous. The pattern was undeniable. Multiple non-commissioned officers were explicitly calling for court-martial proceedings. And then, something inexplicable happened. March 26, 1981. Just 17 days after that final documented incident, Jeffrey Dahmer walked out of the U.S. Army. Not with a bad conduct discharge, not with a dishonorable discharge, not even with a general discharge under honorable conditions. An honorable discharge. It was the military's most favorable discharge characterization, the one that carries full veterans' benefits, the one that implies satisfactory service. And it was granted to a soldier whose own sergeants were explicitly demanding he face court-martial. Let that sink in for a second. Here's what makes this case so deeply troubling. The records provide no explanation whatsoever for this dramatic reversal. There's no documentation showing why. The recommendations for judicial punishment were ignored. Who made the decision to grant an honorable discharge? Whether there was pressure from higher command to process the separation quickly. If Dahmer negotiated or agreed to anything in exchange for the favorable discharge. The gap between those documented incidents and the discharge 17 days later is a complete black box. Now, the records show Dahmer was in Chapter 9 out processing. That's the administrative separation process specifically for service members who failed alcohol or drug rehabilitation programs. This was an involuntary discharge initiated by the command. But here's the critical point. Chapter 9 separations did not automatically prevent court-martial for specific offenses. Showing up drunk on duty multiple times and repeatedly refusing direct orders are serious violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. These are court-martial offenses, not merely administrative problems. The Army could have, and based on these documents, arguably should have, pursued both tracks simultaneously. Court-martial for the criminal offenses and administrative separation for the underlying alcohol problem. Instead, they chose only the administrative route and then gave him an honorable discharge. How? How does a soldier whose own sergeants are explicitly calling for court-martial walk away with the military's most favorable discharge characterization? The Army's records tell us what happened, but the most revealing evidence comes from Dahmer himself. 9 years after his discharge, 1990, court proceedings, case number F882515. Dahmer said something that should make us stop everything and reconsider. If I just hadn't started drinking so heavily when I was serving in Germany, I probably wouldn't have been in this mess. Stop. Rewind. Read that one more time. This wasn't a man describing uncontrollable urges or irresistible compulsions, the language that would later define the Milwaukee cannibal narrative we've all been fed. This was someone pointing to a decision, a specific time, a specific place, an avoidable turning point. 9 years after his discharge, Dahmer was still tracing it all back to Germany. Not to some inevitable darkness lurking in his DNA, not to urges that overpowered his will, to drinking, to a choice he marked with the most haunting word in the English language: if. If implies agency. If implies a fork in the road. If implies that things could have gone differently. But here's the real question. What exactly was that mess? What happened in Germany that set everything in motion? And how did the Army's decision to let him walk free play into what came next? This case raises profound questions about military justice that we still haven't answered. 1. How common was this outcome? Did similar cases routinely result in administrative discharge rather than court-martial, despite NCO recommendations? 2. Was there institutional pressure? Were commands incentivized to process problem soldiers quickly through administrative channels rather than pursue lengthy judicial proceedings? 3. What about accountability? When multiple sergeants document serious misconduct and explicitly request judicial action, what does it mean when that request is ignored? 4. The counterfactual. What if the Army had listened to Sergeant Altman's recommendation? What if Dahmer had faced the court-martial his superiors wanted? What if he had spent time in military confinement rather than receiving an honorable discharge? And the biggest question of all, 5. Did Dahmer have help? Did he have connections, leverage, or assistance we don't see in these records? Who intervened in those 17 days? The military records provide meticulous documentation of the problem, but leave the resolution frustratingly opaque. They show us a soldier spiraling out of control and superiors demanding accountability, and then, inexplicably, an honorable discharge. Look, I know this is heavy, but that's exactly why we need to ask these questions. The official narrative doesn't hold up. Not when you examine the actual documents. Not when you see what his own superiors were saying. Something happened in those 17 days, and we have no record of what it was. If this investigation opened your eyes, do 3 things. 1. Subscribe and hit notifications. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. 2. Share this video. Controversial truth needs your help to spread. 3. Drop your theory below. Why did the Army grant an honorable discharge to a soldier multiple sergeants wanted jailed? Missed part 1? Link is in the description. The 5 red flags nobody stopped. And if this case gripped you, check out my book, Jeffrey Dahmer, Uncovering the Case for Innocence, available now on Amazon and all good online retailers. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay skeptical. See you next time.